Welcome and thank you for tuning in to the 412 Double Play Podcast. I am, as always, your host, Michael Castrignano. Joining me as my double play partner this week, co-host and brother, Steven Castrignano. Big week in baseball, but Steve, thanks for jumping on back to the show again. How are you doing?
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me on, Mike. I'm doing all right. A little disappointed Pitt lost to Syracuse. Living in New York, it's a big issue here, but yeah, besides that, doing pretty well.
And then you said before we jumped on the call, there's not too much going on with the Pirates as far as like signing players, trades, anything like that. Likely it's going to change the free agency, and talk about it all the time. The free agency period for baseball is so different than it is for any of the other sports, where it becomes a free for all when it opens. This one, it's a little bit more of a chess game for free agents, for managers, however.
Yeah,
So
it's certainly more interesting for baseball. I gotta hope management has everything planned out well in advance, which hopefully they do this year, because it's gonna be very aggressive with some of the names out there.
hopefully. So we're going to be talking about those in a second. But first, we're recording this on Saturday. Gold Glove Awards announced yesterday for us, Friday night, with Hayes obviously earning his first Gold Glove. The Platinum, he fell short on the fan voted award. The Platinum Glove was announced on Friday night. Gold Glove was last Sunday. And Fernando Tatis Jr. was the winner in the National League. So Tatis did lead the National League in defensive runs saved with 27. It was his first year playing his new position in right field. Hayes was second overall at 21. Hayes did best him in outs above average, 17 to 11. It's nice for Key to add some gold to his glove. He was understandably upset last year after he was beaten by Arenado. It's well earned. But what are your thoughts on him winning gold, not winning platinum, the whole rollout for that?
Yeah, I think he was not just upset last year. He was upset coming to spring training this year. If you remember one of the interviews with him, talk about Arenado. But yeah, I think him, like, if he didn't get the Gold Glove this year, I would have been very pissed. That was extremely well deserved, and I think that the Platinum Glove, that's just name recognition.
They do use some statistics, and I think it's heavily weighed for defensive runs saved. And I've been talking to guys on Twitter or X, however you want to refer to it, about, because I was upset and I was like, well, this is what you get for fan vote.
Mm-hmm.
Who were like, well, he led all of baseball in defensive runs saved. It's like, but if you look at different metrics, and I'm not just saying, oh, Key Brian Hayes should have won it. I'm obviously biased. I'm gonna say Key should have won it. I voted every day for Key and kept posting. And but in ultimate zone rating, it was Brenton Doyle, who was the center fielder for the Colorado Rockies, who won the Gold Glove there. In outs above average, it was Dansby Swanson by a lot. Like, Tatis wasn't even close there. It was at least second or third in UZR, but they're not quite taking into account all the different variables that go into defense. And I mean, Tatis had a really strong year. Andres Gimenez, who won it for the American League, also had a very strong year. I felt that was well deserved, and props to them. Hopefully Tatis can win platinum at some point, but like Gold Glove, and we were all like, okay, we hope he wins it, because it'll be kind of embarrassing if he loses to. I mean, Ryan McMahon is a very good defender, and I could see a world where that would happen, but Austin Riley, no, that would have been something else. So, only award that the Pirates have won so far this offseason. I don't foresee that changing. Nothing in Silver Slugger. Don't think we're getting MVP stuff. So, the nominations came out. We didn't get anything. So, not looking into that. But this past week, Arizona Fall League also wrapped up. Strong stint. Jace Bowen, he was in the Home Run Derby last week. He made it to the second to last there's 3 rounds. In the second round, he went to a hit homer off. However, he went not a sudden death sort of thing, but it's 1 minute and you hit as many home runs as you can to break the tie. And he just lost that by 1. So the guy who eventually won it hit 5 and he hit 4 in that round. But really strong showing. And overall on the AFL season, because the Salt River Rafters, I don't have the name in front of me now, did not make playoffs. And last year, the Pirates team, the surprise Saguaros, won the whole thing. So not happening this year. But Bowen finished the season with a 290, 355, 500 triple slash. And as fans, we kind of make more about the Rule 5 draft than needs to be, because you don't typically lose a super big player. People will talk about, Johan Santana was a Rule 5. Roberto Clemente was in the first Rule 5 draft. It's very rare that you get situations like that. It's more likely that you get a fringe bullpen guy like we got with Jose Hernandez, who was solid, but he might start next season in Indianapolis. Jace Bowen is potentially going to be added, potentially not going to be added. He's barely gotten to Double-A ball.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure. I hope he does, just because I'd like to see them call him up at some point. Like they added Guerrero when he was in Double-A, but he was a lot, more touted prospect. So is there a world where they protect him, don't protect him? I don't know how much you follow. I feel like I talk about Bowen every week. So if you at least listen to the podcast occasionally, you'll be hearing his name.
Yeah, and then I think we'll see. I think it's kind of tough for him because he did come up to Double-A for a short stint at the end of last season and do too great. Hopefully, being in the AFL, showing he does have that promise, tips the balance back to him. But I don't know. I'm a little skeptical. It's going to depend on who's above him in the pecking order, really.
And how well he does in Altoona, because Greensboro is an easy place for players to excel. But we've seen over the past couple of years, players get to Altoona and kind of plateau. Matt Frazier, Matt Gorski, a number of guys kind of reach that level and then can't get over the hump. So minor league, free agency overall, but minor league free agency this past week, any minor leaguers with sufficient service time, I believe it's 5 or more years, were eligible to elect free agency. So, and we had a number of former top 30 prospects, notable names: Tanaj Thomas, Yuri De Los Santos, Mason Martin, Lolo Sanchez, Cal Mitchell, Ryan Valade was also on that list among the players who've departed the organization. In your mind, what kind of impact, if any, does that have for the organization, having these formerly highly touted prospects who haven't quite panned out and are now free to go sign somewhere else?
Yeah, I think with every team, there's guys that don't quite make it. There's these prospects that you expect to go somewhere and they don't. You just hope that's, not a failing of the minor league system itself. That's just, they didn't quite have the stuff. I think losing Yuri, that really upsets me, honestly, because 2022 coming in for Bednar, getting a couple saves.
Yep.
And then this year he only had 20 opportunities and then ended the season on the injury reserve list. That one hurts because I think he is very good. Everybody else on that list, they had their peaks. Mason Martin had a great start to either 2022 or 2021. Same with Lolo, and they just didn't have the consistency. So that just happens. Some players can't knack it.
It's definitely kind of one of those realities of how difficult it is to make it and stick in Major League Baseball. And we kind of take for granted players who, like Yuri, very good. Cal Mitchell, like he had a considerable amount of reps last in 2022. I won't say last season because in 22, and removed from the 40 man, and now he's free to sign somewhere else.
Yeah, and he had typically pretty good numbers in AAA. Just couldn't make it in major leagues.
Yeah, he also had a fringy arm, but I'm not gonna. I mean, wish all those guys the best. Hopefully Yuri, I would love to have signed back with us because I feel like some injuries and like his two-seamer was really good.
Yeah, this is not a time to be losing bullpen talent.
Yeah. No, I agree. There's definitely going to be some moves coming up, but this past week we had a shakeup in the NL Central. Brewers skipper Craig Counsell skips town for division rival Chicago Cubs. They dismissed their manager David Ross. I think after they signed Counsell, they were like, "Oh, okay, you're gone now." But Counsell signed for managers a record contract, 5 years, $40 million contract. So he's making $8 million per year. The previous annual value for a manager, the highest annual value, was $4.5 million. I don't have who had that, but like in your mind, and I think it's different with, like, I know you're in football mode now. I think it's different with football. I think it can be different with basketball and hockey. In baseball, how much impact does the manager really have on whether his team wins or loses or how individual players perform?
It's an interesting question because they're. I mean, I don't think baseball is that much different from other sports. You have a general manager making a lot of the high decisions, and you've got other coaches under you, like an offensive coordinator or bench coach. But I think the really important stuff still comes down to the skipper of, who's playing today, who's coming out of the bullpen, who's doing this and that. So I that's a lot of money and very interesting. I think it's funny how upset a lot of the Brewers fans were to see him go down to Chicago. I would have rathered him go somewhere else, obviously, but
I mean, we'll see what happens. I think the Cubs are gearing up to try contending. The Reds are potentially going to gear up to contend a little bit more next season. Reportedly, Brewers could be headed for a teardown. Council's gone. The president of baseball operations, David Stearns, went east to the Mets. And then on the player side, Brandon Woodruff's out for the year with Tommy John. Corbin Burns, he's entering his walk year, final season of arbitration. Potentially could be traded this offseason. Their rotation is going to look very different. How likely do you think the Brewers are to trading Burns or possibly even Freddie Peralta, who isn't a free agent yet? He has team options for 25 and 26, but either or both of them could fetch a strong return in the trade market if the Brewers go from winning NL Central to just selling off everything.
Yeah, I don't see the Brewers being a complete tear down. Oh, let's get rid of everybody and rebuild for a few years. I think if anything, maybe they try to get a strong return on Burns. Maybe they have a down year next year and then get right back to the swing of things. But I don't see them giving up on everybody. Like they just don't have that kind of mentality. Too much of a reputation. So Burns, you're going to get some really good returns on him, especially with teams like the Phillies and the Yankees interested in adding him. So I could see them getting a good return and then just continuing to be an annoying team in the Central.
Yeah, definitely seems possible. Or even if they just hold on to him until the trade deadline and make the choice then. But The GM meetings in Scottsdale, Arizona this past week cut short. Virus ran rampant, sickening dozens. Charrington appeared to come out unscathed. During interviews, reiterated his plan to prioritize pitching this offseason. So we know that BC speaks in generalities overall. It does seem that the team will be adding multiple starting pitching options. It's kind of been alluded to multiple times in interviews, discussions that he's had, either via free agency or trade, and potentially more. Who is there anyone who you think they'll add, hope they'll add? I pretty much ask whoever I'm on with this every week.
Yeah, I've noticed. I am not even going to take a guess. I think it'd be nice to see, and I think Mackey said the same thing. It'd be nice to see Santana come back, because I'm still kind of upset about that trade. He's a really good guy to have on the Pirates. If they can re-sign Velasquez for a pretty similar contract to last year, I think that'd be good. And then the question of that really comes down to, how much faith do you think management has in the current team? Like, do we add just 2 starting pitchers, assuming you get Brubaker, Burrows back healthy, maybe a Contreras or Ortiz playing back to level? Like, how much do you expect them to actually be going out? Is it just 2 starting pitchers like they did last year, or do you think they go out and add more?
Well, looking at positional depth, and this is stuff that kind of varies based on injuries, based on promotions, guys moving into and out of positions, because our catching depth, a year or two ago seemed like, okay, we've got the guys in the major league, and then Endy's coming up, Davis is coming up. Now Endy's up and Davis seems like he's in right field. It's possible that, we've got Abraham Gutierrez, guys further down like Axial Plaz. But is there any position in the system that you feel is I don't want to say like first base, because guys kind of fall into first base. But are there any positions where they're not as strong as they should be?
I think, first base is definitely the biggest question mark, because I don't know if Triolo can keep that offensive numbers up without getting any power. It'll definitely be interesting to see if, Davis is just a full-time right fielder now. He never gets a chance to catch. It's Endy and Delay behind him.
I think they have to be prioritizing that, because if he focuses full-time in right field, he's got a really strong arm.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you get Jose Guillen, Roberto Clemente kind of vibes with like his arm and the kind of throws he's able to make. He's got to get a little bit more comfortable out there, but he's so boxy behind the plate. And from what I've heard, it's not that he wants to be a catcher. He just wants to win. And so if they're like, okay, you're going to be right field, you're going to be first base, you're going to be DH, he's like, all right, whatever I can do to put the team in position to win.
Yeah, if that's the attitude he's coming in with, that's awesome. It's not like I played catcher most of my career, I was expecting to do that. If he's just let me learn right field, which I suspect he pretty much is. He's going out there and doing it. He's got to get that better initial look, which just comes with experience. But yeah, he's definitely got the talent for right field. I'm not worried. As long as he's committed to that position, I am more than happy to let him stay there.
But you were mentioning some players that you think that the organization should sign this offseason, specifically bringing back guys like Santana and Velasquez. What would be an I don't want to say perfect, because perfect offseason, we're going and we're getting Ohtani, we're getting Yamamoto,
Yes.
we're getting Montgomery.
Spending $200 million.
But speaking like, okay, filling these positional roles, not even saying specific players, saying, okay, one right-handed starting pitcher, one left-handed starting pitcher, one left-handed first baseman. Like, what specific positions do you think they need to fill to correct for them to, because they've got to be looking to compete in 24. Forgot what year it was for a sec.
Yeah.
They can't go in with just hopes and dreams for opening day. They got to come in with like some solid talent and some more ads. So you laid out for me what positions do they add this offseason?
Yeah. I mean, like you said, definitely first base, couple starting pitchers, maybe a bullpen arm or two if they can get it. I feel like outfield is very crowded. I would hope Zawinski's able to kind of step up a little bit better, and maybe he becomes like a 30 home run, maybe a 240 average. I'd be a-okay with that at center field. Then you've got, Kutch at DH. Maybe try to add a temporary second baseman if you don't think Pegs or Nicky G are going to be ready for it. But
Okay.
besides that, like it's really, Cruz coming back healthy. Hayes has third base secured. You got Reynolds on one side. I don't think there's a huge gap on this team, but it is a lot of making sure these young players can stay consistent they were at the end of last season.
They were definitely playing with a renewed vigor in September, and it felt more like a team that was functional, even with 2/5 of rotation. And it does seem like that's going to be something that they need to get.
Mm-hmm.
I've been saying like 2, maybe 3 starting pitchers, but they have to get at least 2. Maybe a bullpen arm, first base. Names have been talked about, like a defense first outfielder, like Kiermaier's a free agent. Kevin Kiermaier just won another Gold Glove. Michael A. Taylor, I think I've heard him. So, I mean, we'll see. But I think that they're obviously going to prioritize pitching. But I wanted to pivot to what's the title of the show, Weighing Our Options, because heading into the offseason, there's a number of question marks for players who they're looking to take steps forward next season, continue developing either in Pittsburgh or in the minors. But some of these players are out of options, player options, minor league options, however you want to say that, for 2024, and decisions will need to be made sooner rather than later. Who will be hitting the road to Bradenton and who will just be hitting the road? So I'm going to go ahead and list the names of guys currently on the 40-man who are out of minor league options. Bailey Falter, Roansy Contreras, Andre Jackson, Thomas Hatch. It's actually less than I thought it was going to be. Max Kranick would have been in this group, but due to injuries and losing so much time, he should qualify for a 4th option per Ethan Houlihan, who you got to trust him more than Fangraphs or anything because he's on his game with this. So eventually, roster resource stuff will be updated and show that Kranick still has another option. Likely will continue working in Indianapolis. But Falter, Contreras, Jackson, Hatch. Hatch was a guy I thought would have been cut, that first week of the offseason, but they didn't. Falter and Jackson made starts down the stretch. Roansy, obviously a former top prospect who's been struggled a lot this past year.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on those players, and specifically which ones, if any, are not going to be in Pittsburgh?
Oh boy, like you said, there's not a lot of names, but there are some tough choices. I really liked Andre Jackson, provided they didn't overuse him. He's definitely a middle innings, maybe 2 or 3 kind of guy. So I really hope that he stays and is able to develop. Contreras, I have no idea. Like he should be staying on the team with the talent that he has. But I don't know if he's just got the yips. He's not doing things consistently. They really need to find an opportunity to vet him out and see what he's actually going to be next year. Because I don't know. I don't know if there's a spot for him, which is very difficult.
And then Hatch and Falter.
Yeah, Hatch and Falter, I'm less concerned with. I think if there's not room, Falter's not bad, but pull his numbers back up.
Yeah, I was talking with.
He did step in for us in a few big spots, but
overall, he doesn't really have much stuff. He's
Yeah.
a multi-inning lefty reliever. Hatch, I never thought very much of,
Yeah.
but yeah, I agree. I think Jackson definitely has some value as a long relief because you're going to need to have some long relievers, and maybe as more guys, more starting pitchers come up, and guys who were in the rotation need to get bumped somewhere, his role maybe lessens or gets eliminated at that point. But yeah, I agree. I think that Jackson does make the opening day roster as it stands right now, depending on what moves they make this offseason. Like, yeah, I agree with you though. I don't know what they're gonna do with Rowe. I don't know what specific stuff there is like going wrong. Like you said, if it's just a case of the yips, he did have a decrease in velocity, went back and was working out in Bradenton in like the complex. And I think he just stayed there for like 2 months. So there wasn't really. I was just checking to see if he's going to be in the winter league, but I didn't see anything.
Yeah, that would be a good opportunity for him to try to get some starts. I mean, he's got enough talent. He's a young enough player that he is more than 50% worth trying to keep him. But yeah, his numbers from last year were very bad.
And it was, I mean, he got demoted to the bullpen, and then from there he got optioned down to Indianapolis, and then from there he got sent to complex. It was just a rough year.
Yeah.
So I don't know if the loss of velocity is due to an injury. If that's the case, they could potentially have, if he has the surgery, they could potentially DFA him and then just re-sign him back to a minor league deal. But I don't know. Like you said, I don't know what's going on with him specifically.
I don't even see anything on him. Like there's not a whole lot of reporting, not a whole lot of focus. It's very tough to make a judgment.
It's a quiet start to the offseason. And so I think overall, if we're going into the spring, Keller, Oviedo, and then you gotta sign at least 2 starting pitchers.
Yeah.
So if it's somebody who is like looking for a 1-year prove it deal, like Jack Flaherty or Frankie Montas or something like that, and then you go and get somebody else who's a little bit more durable, who's had that success. I've talked about how Kenta Maeda I felt would be a really good fit for the team, but on a 2-year deal, because you need to show that you're not just going to sign these 1-year deals and expect them to be traded at the deadline.
Yeah, I 100% agree. We need some guys that are sticking around that are helping to continue to develop guys like we had with Burnett during the 2012 to 2015.
Yeah, minus 2014, but he just got lost in the state, went the wrong way.
That's right.
But
that's silly.
Yeah, hopefully we're gonna have news of signing soon. Probably not. This is just kind of how the offseason goes. It's going to be slow until it's not. And when news breaks, that's all we're going to talk about.
Well, it's
So
exciting. You get to be theoretical and hopeful about everything.
it's every week. I'm just like,
We're
so what do you
signing
think?
Ohtani. We're doing it. It's okay.
Ohtani.
He's going to
We're
play
getting,
outfield now. It's okay.
yeah. We're getting Ohtani and Kutch. They're just going to
Yes.
like alternate through DH.
It's going to be awesome.
You heard it here first. All right, well, that wraps it up for all of us here at the 412 Double Play Podcast. Thank you to my brother Steve for joining me this week. You can follow me on X, Twitter, whatever, at 412 Double Play. Continue listening to the show. YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever else podcasts are found. Make sure you subscribe so you can get notified when we drop our new episodes. And from all of us here at the 412 Double Play Podcast, thank you for joining us, and let's go Bucks.
Let's go Bucks.